Good evening, and thank you for joining me here for Talk About It Tuesday. And yeah, there's some things we got to talk about tonight. For starters, y'all need to start treating them kids right, because now the animals went from flipping over yachts and boats to they're like, give me the baby. You're not doing it right. But they're just so much in the news, and we're gonna get to it all. But a certain online creator has resurfaced with controversy along with his revisioning of his history. Take a quick look.
The story he is telling y'all is not what happened. He says, I just wanted to be taken out by the police, that he went into school, fired a few rounds into the ceiling. Assistant principal attacks him, the firearm goes off, he's arrested. Now what really happened, went into the bathroom to text his friends, hey, I have a weapon, leave now. Goes in the hallway, is firing at students, they're running back and forth, chasing students into classrooms, he's a bad shot. They're being pointed at. Hits one student in the leg, he goes back into the hallway. Assistant principal attacks him, he fires at the principal. They're also hit. He gets arrested, and that night in the jail cell, the TV's playing the news of what happened and what he did. The CEO's report, he was laughing at it, giggling at the screen. Mind you, 250,000 followers. His comments, oh, everybody has a rough patch. I'm sorry, that's not a rough patch. Then this happened recently where he was attacked by a sword, and he claims it's because he's white. On the news, they not once bring up his crimes, says that he's gracious and compassionate. He does so much for the unhoused community. That man is a top-tier manipulator. You hear stories all the time of people in prison say the nicest people. You look up their record, comes to find out they've committed the most heinous crimes you can think of. They're constantly trying to manipulate everyone around them, but they have not changed.
Also, let me add, because on a previous account on TikTok, I covered his lies. He is a prime example of white people choosing to defend white people, because on his page a week before he originally started this, oh, I believe in reverse racism, you can be racist against white people, and this is why I was attacked by a black man with a sword, and it's because of my race. He showed the surveillance footage. The back and forth that he claims happened didn't happen. The slurs that he claims were hurled at him didn't happen. That man walked in and went straight towards LaJohnny John, which means there had been bad blood. Now, according to court records, that black man was going through a mental health crisis. He was having an episode. Whatever triggered him, it appears that it came from a back and forth. And this is just alleged. This is just my hypothesis. It seems as if John needed something this horrific to fully redeem himself. Because I believe it was late 80s, early 90s, where there was legislation passed that you cannot profit off of your victims. If you are convicted and you go to prison, you cannot profit off of your crimes. Yes, John is technically already profiting, but he does put up a lot of GoFundMes. And I think this way he can start to profit off of him being a school shooter fully, because now I'm the victim of reverse racism. And I cannot stand the term reverse racism, because if you reverse racism, there's no racism. Let me say that again. If you reverse racism, there's no racism. But let's get into some news of the day. Hunter Biden was, allergies, runny eyes today. Hunter Biden was in court today for his arraignment. I remember we had discussed this previously. His attorneys had put in a motion for him to do it virtually, but he could not. That seems very standard for federal cases. The pandemic kind of switched some things up, and we got a little comfortable with those things, but they were back to their regular scheduled programming. Now, he was arraigned today on the felony gun charges. He did plead not guilty through his attorney. He is facing up to 25 years in prison, but given that this is his first offense, it's unlikely that he would receive the maximum sentence. Since the last court appearance, Hunter has undergone several substance testing. All of the results have been negative for usage. So that's great in regards to his sobriety, because I was getting a little concerned with all this pressure that they're putting on him. People, everybody is human. And in some instances, people allow a lot of pressure, a lot of stress to lead them down the pathway of relapse. So I am ecstatic that Hunter, through all of this, is able to hold on to his sobriety. So hold on to those victories, Hunter. Hold on to those victories, okay? The defense did state today in court that they are prepared to file for dismissal, and the dismissal would be filed on the following grounds. And we kind of touched on this before, and there was one breakdown where I talked about the SCOTUS case that contradicts the charges that are being brought against him. So here we go. The diversion agreement is still valid and in effect. And if you remember, that diversion agreement and the plea agreement did address the gun charges. And the second ground is the constitutionality of one of the charges. Also, keep in mind that on October 12th, the statute of limitation expires on the gun charges. So if you're wondering, like, why are they like reneging and moving so quickly on this? The clock is ticking. And before anybody goes, well, why did they let it run out? Trump's team, people who are faithful to Trump, have been investigating Hunter Biden since the Trump administration. This is on them. They have nothing, no different than this Biden impeachment inquiry. They have nothing. They just want optics to keep manipulating their constituency. Now, regarding the constitutionality aspect of one of the charges, during the last session of SCOTUS, the court determined it to be unconstitutional to impose gun restrictions that did not exist at the time the country was founded. And now the SCOTUS is back in session. It appears that they're going to be reviewing this because it was a lesser Supreme, it was like a state level Supreme Court. But this could be very, very touchy for a lot of gun charges, like especially over the past 10 years. But we'll keep an eye on it. Now, the charges that he was arraigned on today, the first charge is false statement when purchasing a firearm. The second is false statement related to information required to be kept via the federal firearms license dealer. And the third charge, possession of a firearm by a person who is an unlawful user or addicted to controlled substances. And this is the charge that has no restrictions from the founding. So that's the one they're challenging, in regards to constitutionality. Now, unless you've been under a rock, Kevin McCarthy is no longer Speaker of the House. He spent 9 months as Speaker of the House. The vote was today. In early interviews with random members of the GOP, it didn't seem like many people wanted to replace McCarthy. Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat, did send a letter to the Democrats stating that there's no need to save McCarthy due to him not standing up to the MAGA minority. And that the people, the citizens, would see that are going to view this vote as dysfunction. Yeah, those of us with working brain cells. Matt Gaetz spent the time pre-vote sitting alone at the back of the chamber looking at his phone. And nobody seems to like Matt Gaetz. But I don't think too many people like McCarthy either. Because McCarthy put out a statement and was like, hey, it's Matt Gaetz, which I can see. There's some news outlets that are like, no, it has to be more than Matt Gaetz because it was 8 people that voted against him. One person can rile up a lot of people. One person can sprinkle enough information around to get people to go against you. I get that 100%. But nobody seems to like Matt Gaetz. There was another representative that basically inferred, and I put it over on TikTok, that he wanted to fight Matt Gaetz. And Matt Gaetz still has that ethics committee report that should be out either this week or next week. Like, get your priorities in order. And just like a Florida man, it's rumored that Matt Gaetz wants to run for governor. What is with Gaetz and DeSantis? You make it to the federal level, and then you want to backtrack to the state level. Like, you like it, I love it. Representatives that stated earlier today, before any vote was taken, that they intended to oust McCarthy were Gaetz, of course, Eli Crane of Arizona, Andy Biggs of Arizona, Bob Good of Virginia, Tom Burchett of Tennessee, and then Matt Rosendale of Montana. Now, keep in mind, McCarthy being ousted by vote is the first time. Everybody keeps saying the first time in history. It's the first time in 235 years. The first time in 235 years that a speaker has been ousted by vote. Have there been speakers to step down? Absolutely. But to be kicked out because you were voted out, first time in 235 years. 235 years. He's not the first ever. Just the first one during anybody who's living right now's lifetime. Now, with a 15-minute voting window before the vote to oust him, there was a vote regarding a motion to table the ousting vote. It was presented to the floor, and it was asked that the vote be recorded, and that happened about approximately 2:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That vote was 208 yay, 207 nay, and a no vote of 9. So with that, they went ahead and proceeded to vote. Now, Matt Gaetz yielded some of his time to speak to debate on why McCarthy should be ousted to Bob Good. And Bob, it was weird. And yes, there were other people who spoke, but Bob speaking, it really stuck out to me because he was basically saying everything that Bob Good, had done while in Congress and how much he had helped McCarthy, but then said McCarthy didn't need to be there. It was weird. It was very weird. Because for a moment I was like, are you vying to be the new speaker? Like, this is, and if you are staking claim to some of the decisions and legislation that McCarthy stood behind and put his name on, why are you pushing to get him ousted? It's like me calling my best friend a bank robber and then standing up in court and going, yeah, it was my idea. Yeah, I helped her and I drove the car away. But yeah, you need to go ahead and put her in jail. So it came down to a 216 yes, 210 no. And the Speaker pro temp, basically the temporary Speaker of the House, will be Patrick McHenry. That is a pick from McCarthy's list that he gave them, and he is a fervent ally of McCarthy. Patrick had previously said that he had no desire to be the Speaker, but can't really be a speakerless House at this point. Now, there was, if McCarthy chose to, when they do the next rounds, to choose to vote in another speaker, he could throw his name in the hat, but he said that that's not what he wants. But, you made it a good 9 months. You had a nice pregnancy of a speakership. Now, Matt Gaetz ousted McCarthy, who was handpicked by Marjorie Taylor Greene and Trump. So it is predicted that that is going to cause additional infighting within the GOP. Because, Matt Gaetz had been touting himself, as a Macedonian ultra mega, to the point where he makes an appearance in Cassidy Hutchinson's book for being at Camp David with Trump. And we know all of the other degrees of separation between Matt Gaetz and Trump. So it seems like Matt Gaetz is trying to one up and out Trump. It's weird. It's very weird. And it is very clear that this vote, this ousting, is just retaliation for McCarthy not towing the line for Matt Gaetz. The House will be on recess for a full week. And no, there's no time limit on how long somebody can be Speaker pro temp and how long they can have a Speaker pro temp. So, and like I said, McCarthy did make a formal statement saying that he will not run for the speakership again. Various members of the GOP in the House believe the ousting was bad for the party, and no one seems to know what the plan is moving forward for the House GOP. There was a lot of confusion at the conclusion of a meeting for the GOP after the vote. Nobody seems to know anything. Like, there was no full plan. That it seems like, and I keep telling y'all, they seem to, oh, he's definitely crying in the car. They seem to look very, very short term at everything. Like, you made me mad, so I need this done today, but what's going to happen tomorrow? After you get these results, what's the next step? You can't just make one step and just stand there. It's not the mannequin challenge. And McCarthy lost any Democratic support that he did have when he lied to the country about who was behind the looming shutdown, the one that was averted because of the Democrats on Saturday. Remember, with just a little over 3 hours left for the deadline before the government would have shut down. Now, like I told you before, McCarthy is not the first speaker to have to vacate the seat. He is the first speaker in 235 years to be voted out. There have been a total, including McCarthy, 4 that have been, as many pundits are saying today, run out of the House. And that would be Newt Gingrich, Paul Ryan, and John Boehner. Now, Newt, Paul, and John could not control their collective caucus to the point where they were like, you know what? I quit. I'm going to step down and I'm going to leave. Notice anything? All GOP. The GOP cannot get along for crap. Like, they aren't even trying. Now, before we get to the Trump and the gag order and other Trump legal news, let's take a trip over to North Carolina, because it's looking like the GOP has assembled their own secret police. You know how this goes. I'll see you in 2 and 2.
Who needs warrants? North Carolina Republicans created a secret police force. If this sounds bad, trust me, it's way worse. So North Carolina has a 600-page budget bill, and in that budget bill, they snuck in a little something that gives extraordinary investigative power to one particular committee. So the committee in question is the Joint Legislative Committee on Government Operations. They call it GovOps for short. It's very partisan. It's pretty much all Republicans, and it investigates things like diversity and equity programs at universities. Keep that in mind. Now, this bill empowers that committee to seize any document or system of record from anyone who works in or with state and local government during its investigations. That applies to contractors, subcontractors, basically anyone or any organization that receives public funds, charities, universities. But it gets even better, or worse, I should say. Not only can they seize documents, also gives this committee the authority to enter into the premises, any building or facility, including homes, without a warrant. Read it back to you. GovOps staff will be authorized to enter any building or facility owned or leased by a state or non-state entity without a judicial warrant. That includes private residences. Also, public employees under investigation will be required to keep all communications and requests confidential. And listen to this. They cannot alert their supervisor of the investigation and consult with legal counsel. What? I'm sorry, what? So did you just say that a committee has the right to seize your property, your documents, and they can enter your home, your office without a warrant, and you are not allowed to alert anyone or seek legal counsel? What? Violating this law would be grounds for dismissal. Those that are refused to cooperate could face jail time. Yeah, could face jail time. So if you tell your supervisor or if you happen to consult with legal counsel, you could face jail time.
In North Carolina's 600-plus page budget, there is a provision that creates a secret police force, controlled by Republicans with extraordinary power. The budget grants the Government Operations Committee the right to seize any document or system of record from anyone who works in or with the state in local government. This includes contractors or anyone who directly or indirectly receive state funds, including charities and colleges. Without a judicial warrant, GovOps will be authorized to enter any building or facility owned or leased by a state or non-state entity. This includes private homes if it includes a home office of a contractor. And public officials under investigation will be required to keep all communication and requests confidential. They cannot alert their supervisor of the investigation or consult legal counsel. Those who fail to cooperate face jail time or fines up to $1,000. Republicans dominate GovOps and pursue partisan investigations. It is co-chaired by Senate Leader Phil Berger and House Speaker Tim Moore. GovOps launched an inquiry into diversity training programs at the University of North Carolina earlier this year. Berger and Moore claim this is all about oversight and transparency, but a separate provision of the budget allows them to reject any public records requests concerning the operation of GovOps. Opponents say these new rules will make uncovering corruption and creating accountability harder. The North Carolina Association of Broadcasters expressed concerns that the changes will permit the General Assembly to operate in secrecy, shielded from public view and accountability to those whom the members of the Assembly were elected to serve. This is part of a broader effort to restrict public access to public records. The budget also repeals a law that required communications regarding redistricting be made publicly available when new legislative maps were adopted. North Carolina is one of the most gerrymandered states in the country. In 2022, a gerrymandering trial exposed a top Republican redistricting official for using secret maps to help draft the state's redistricting plans. This is Popular Information, a newsletter that holds the powerful accountable. Find the full report on popular.info and follow along here for more accountability journalism.
Won't properly investigate Trump. Won't investigate Jared Kushner or Ivanka Trump for actual crimes against the country. But we're going to strong arm citizens and convince said citizens that the far right ideology that they're moving closer and closer to, i.e. fascism, is really sitting in the lap and the bosom of the left. We are officially in the upside down. We are officially in the upside down. And the party of the Constitution continues. You can't even say trample on the Constitution at this point. They are setting it on fire and then just throwing kerosene, gasoline, and lighter fluid onto it at this point. They are holding full on cookouts and barbecues and picnics atop the Constitution. Because how are you going to tell someone that is under investigation, where they definitively need legal representation in order to understand anything that you present to them, and they cannot be without duress and agree with anything without said representation, that they cannot consult an attorney, that they cannot sue? Now, if you're investigating the company and you feel that there's one person who might become a whistleblower, I can understand going, you know what, hey, keep this between us. And this also goes to a deeper problem, because I don't know if you all are aware how many companies are trying to detract their employees from continuing to work at home and work from home. So now we're attacking people with home offices. There was a period of time where I worked out of my car for the most part, because of all the places I had to be and the schedules of my kids. My office was my car. Full Wi-Fi hub, laptop, iPads, all up in the car to work. I had an older cousin that would see me from time to time in the parking lot waiting for the kids to get out of practice, and she knew I was sitting there working. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. But you can reinstate a corrupt attorney general in Texas who's still under investigation by the FBI, who still has to face criminal charges, who's still under investigation by his bar association. But this is what you put your energy and effort into. Must be nice to be white and Republican. Must be nice. Now let's go on to the other big story of the day. Trump finally got hit with a gag order. Let's get into it. So the judge out of the New York fraud case ruled in favor of a gag order due to Trump's social media attack on a court clerk. Trump is not allowed to post or speak of members of the court, and this gag order was blanketly put on everyone, but we know who it was targeted towards. But the judge still has to follow all legalities. It was between 45 minutes and an hour delay in court today. The judge was made known of the post, had the media leave, spoke to the attorney general and the attorneys under her and Trump and his legal team, and ordered the deletion of the post that was placed on Truth Social regarding the judge's clerk. And all those in attendance were informed that any breach of that order would result in sanctions. No discussing court staff in public, social media, via email, etc. Now, the penalties could be a monetary fine or incarceration. Due to Trump's rhetoric, we all know that threats have been the result of it, to the point that the judge presiding over this particular case must be escorted by armed security to and from court. And I'm not talking like from the courtroom to his office. I'm talking about in the morning, he's not driving himself to work. In the evening, when he's done, it's time to go home, he's not driving himself home. Security is taking care of all of that. And Trump decided to target a clerk. Who could do what? Who's in control of what? Who had the misfortune of just working for a judge who pulled the Trump trial out of a judicial lottery? Trump is also now claiming that he's being denied a jury trial. But keep in mind, on the paperwork, it was checked off just to have a bench trial. And that's because cases such as this, fraud cases, are generally bench trials because of the technicalities and everything else. You don't want a jury pool where a couple of different things could happen. One, people do not understand the technicalities and the legalities that are involved in proving a fraud case. Number one, you also don't want people's envy to determine, yeah, that's fraud, because they're looking at someone, because we know how the United States is, and somebody might be the wrong gender, may have the wrong sexual orientation, may have the wrong skin tone, and they're just looking at, they shouldn't have more money than me. Catch what I'm putting down? But because the judicial system is the judicial system, and Trump somewhere underneath all that orangeness is a white man, okay? The legal team could have requested a jury trial, and they could have done that within 15 days of receiving the summons. And that was in September. The summons was served September 21st of 2022. So they've had plenty of time for this. Also, another, a lot of people in the media are calling it a bombshell. We're calling it, why the fuck did it take so long for you to finally tell the truth? But let's talk about it. Marine General John Kelly, Trump's former chief of staff, finally has decided to come out and tell the truth and confirm Trump's disrespectful views regarding the military. He also stated that Trump has contempt for democracy and the judicial system. No shit, Sherlock. But if you would have said something when you first found out, we could have avoided a whole bunch of stuff. But for the rest of the high-ranking military men that worked closely with Trump, get to talking. Get to talking, because his base will listen to you. They bootlick the military more than they bootlick for Trump. And if you come out and finally tell the truth, we can get out of this fever dream. Because trust and believe, these sheets are getting sticky and we're tired of it, okay? Anybody got money to keep washing these sheets that y'all keep putting us in this bed that we didn't make and we didn't want to lay down in? The fever dream must end. Also, Trump does have other legal cases. There's a lot of moving parts. Now, we all know about the 4 cases that resulted in 91 charges for Trump to be indicted on. That happened this year. But in the start of next year, we got to start marking our calendars now, honey. We're into spooky season. We're at the final countdown of 2023. Trump has 2 more civil cases, a defamation suit and a class action suit. And keep in mind, Trump has targeted all of these judges, attorney generals, district attorneys, random people who work for the courts and sheriff's departments. But you want to know the one person he's never targeted? The one person he hasn't said anything about? The one person he's never asked to recuse themselves? The one person who should recuse themselves, especially after it was unearthed that there's photographic evidence of her being in full MAGA gear at MAGA rallies? The happy heifer down in Florida, presiding over the documents case, that rarely gives us court dates. We rarely get any hearings. She's doing all the stalling for Trump, and that would be Judge Eileen Cannon. At what point are we going to demand accountability? Because as we see within the Supreme Court, with too many justices, that impeachment proceedings should have already commenced for them. Okay. We should be coming down to making a decision regarding them. We should be coming down to the point of removing them from the bench at this point, but we're not. And I digress. But you have a Trump appointed judge who there's evidence, undisputable, undenied, because she never denied it was her. She confirmed it wasn't Photoshop. Yep, that's me. Yep, love me some Trump. Why is she allowed to continue to preside over this case? Now, can people be impartial? Yes. Have we seen a single person who idolizes Trump be impartial? No. No. They take firm stances. Either they love him and they're willing to lie and go down with the Titanic for him, or they jump ship and tell you everything. Well, minus Ivanka. She jumped ship. She just ain't said nothing yet. And also regarding the fraud case, Donald Trump Jr. has already released some information, basically throwing his brother under the bus. Donnie Sr., old trumpeted Trump, Trump himself, does not care if either of his sons goes down. He does not care. If he can find a way to place all of the blame on them or enough of it that he can skate by and not go to prison, he's going to do it. And I know most of the video footage that people are getting, because there's no cameras in the no video cameras allowed, no videography allowed in the courtroom. You're getting the boisterous, posturing, I am Tarzan speeches from him. Okay. I am Sparta. Yeah, maybe you need to pay attention to the true story of Sparta, Trump. Inside the courtroom, he's like a little kid that convinces an older or bigger family member to fight the fight that they created and caused on the playground. Because he's like, yeah, tell him this, tell him. And his attorneys are making plumb damn fools of themselves because there's no jury to play to. The judge has already shown he's irritated and frustrated with them. He's repeatedly had to tell them to stop yelling, to stop lying, like legitimately stop lying. That's not true. You know it's not true. You can't do that. You know this. Like, he's looking at these attorneys like, you're really going to risk your licenses for this. Remember, there's no jury to play into. There's no video clips that's going to go viral with Fox News, OAN, Breitbart, Newsmax, none of that. There's nothing for the right-leaning podcast to pull on to. It's pointless, but they're playing to an audience of one, Trump. So if they get up there and tap dance around and make a damn fool of themselves, and he's like, yeah, you did a good job. Yeah, you argue with him. Yep. Because they're still trying to argue points of the case that were decided in the partial summary judgment. Just because Trump wants it in the official record, I didn't do anything. It's a victimless crime. Everybody made money. Did they? You cannot count something as profits when you're literally stealing from Peter to pay Paul. Like, we know how many times Deutsche Bank foot the bill for you. And did you ever pay back your Deutsche Bank loans? Because that story just disappeared. We don't know what the next step was. Is Deutsche Bank going to be the next one to sue you, Trump? Because those loans have come due. Hence the fact that you're grifting so hard and so much. You don't have a bank you can go to anymore. Well before this fraud charge. But I also want to give y'all this nugget. Because y'all know, a lot of times I just sit back and I observe. Whether it's history in the making, how people deal with or analyze history, or just people in general. And if you are going to criticize Magadonians, start with the criticism of yourself, because I'm seeing far too many people becoming sheep for favorite creators, for celebrities, and things like that, and not paying attention to the fact that you're being fed shit that doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. And then you're taking a breath to go criticize them for not critically thinking through something. We cannot get ahead if everybody is doing the same shit just with different uniforms on. Let me repeat that. We cannot get ahead if everybody's doing the same shit just with different uniforms on. Too many people are getting platformed that are problematic, have been problematic from the start. And then when someone gets hurt or has the potential of being hurt or being placed in harm's way, now all of a sudden, I'm shocked. I didn't know. The fuck was you looking at for 4 years? Every time you saw their video, did you mute it? Like, let's collectively agree to do better. Because before we can criticize somebody else, we have to start with the critiques and criticisms for ourselves. No, none of us are perfect at all. At all. And also with that, learn to discern so that you can give proper grace. Because there are far too many people who are truly victimized that people are, had they not know, had they not see this, but in the same breath, people are explaining how abusive relationships and abusive dynamics work. But then when somebody's like, hey, I've been abused by this very popular person who's trying to abuse you as well. Well, how did you not know? You didn't ask this question. You can ask a million questions to a villain. Who said the villain is going to tell you the truth? Stop shaming people because a villain did what a villain's gonna do. Well, that's my 2 cents. Like I always say, I'm gonna put it on the table. You can choose to leave it there, or you can pick it up. But, it is what it is. Whether it's online or in your day-to-day life, take the advice with you. Because a lot of times we compartmentalize online with offline. Online is still comprised of people, just like offline is comprised with people. And a lot of times we can find ourselves being more gracious to those that we see online than we are the people that we have a better grasp of who they are by being in our day-to-day lives. So I will see you all tomorrow. Y'all be safe. And as always, each one teach one, each one reach one. And make sure you check out the links in the description of this video. And when you come back tomorrow, bring a friend. Share it around. Till tomorrow, y'all.